let me close with a fourth point about freedom, and thank you for your attention. But the defense of freedom requires an integrity in vocabulary, and it requires a kind of transparency in policy that I believe is essential for our success. I think when defending freedom, if you refuse to call a war, you're unlikely to be able to defend it successfully. If the terrorist is making war on you and you refuse to confess that you're at war with the terrorist when you make a response, you might limit your response improperly so that you don't have success in preserving and protecting the liberty which we all know ought to be protected. Now, in the arena of the war on terror, let me say that there are a variety of ways that we can undertake our effort to secure the American people. Included in those ways are the criminal laws that the United States normally enforces on its shores, but also to the extent that we are at war, we have the ability, and I believe we have the duty from time to time, to respond with the mechanisms and capacities of war, rather than to put our head in the sand and to think that we're not at war, or to fail to consider whether at war because we're so in love with the vocabulary of the civil justice system. So let me just indicate that when I was Attorney General, we had the opportunity to deal with terrorists multiply in different ways. And that range of opportunity should be available to every president of the United States. But it should be understood, and vocabulary should be avoided, that would prejudice. You should avoid the vocabulary that prejudices the nation against doing what it needs to do in order to protect the people of this country. One of the impacts of the increasing lethality that we understand as part of modernity is that very small groups of people can have very disastrous impacts. And it's important that you consider them very carefully. And I believe that prevention must continue to be our priority, especially when those who would seek to harm us plan to destroy themselves in the perpetration of the event. And so it is important that we not have a vocabulary that excludes treating acts of war as acts of war, and that we consider the potential of using the capacities of war when we are at war so as to limit the kinds of jeopardy in which we find the citizens of this great country. Let me quickly close. In the Middle Ages, there were a group of folks that were called the alchemists. I don't know whether you remember them. I remember this pretty graphically. I don't know why the 7th grade is so indelibly imprinted in my mind. But these were guys who were fiddling around with base metals, you know, copper and bronze and lead and things like that. And they thought if they could just mix them together right, or sprinkle a little pixie dust on them, or that they could change base metal into gold. Do you remember that? That was their whole idea. We'll be rich as soon as we can do that. Well, that was learned about the alchemists in the 7th grade. In the 9th grade, we got to the periodic table, which was all the stuff about the fundamental elements of the universe, and we learned that you can't do that. Well, I submit to you that there is an alchemy in human existence, that there is a special substance, that there is a pixie dust, if you will, that changes the ordinary into the extraordinary, that changes the also-rans into world beaters, that changes the base into the elite. And the chemistry that's involved there is the chemistry of liberty. I'm back to the first point I made. Liberty is the core value of American exceptionalism. We must seek to safeguard it. at every turn. And whenever we operate in a universe to try and safeguard it, we have to make sure we do so as carefully as possible and never do anything that doesn't expand and enhance the liberty that we would otherwise have. And when we do that, we reinforce this concept that there is an alchemy in human existence, that ordinary people become extraordinary. They do extraordinary things in the environment and in the presence of liberty and freedom. And that's what the purpose of self-government in America is about, to safeguard that liberty, to put the self-interest of every individual, to have it operate in the universe of governance, so that those in Washington who might seek to impose their values on the people could be called to attention and awakened, maybe by an election in Massachusetts, maybe even a special election, which would ring the bell and say, no, this country is not a place where those in Washington impose on the people what they don't desire. This is a place where the people of the United States come together to tell their leaders what they do desire and to enshrine the freedom that has made this nation great. Thank you very much. God bless you.